Hello everybody, my name is Alex, welcome back to my channel. So my last video was talking to you all about the fact that I finally finished my first draft. Woohoo! Great stuff. Except now comes the real part of the work. So this now means drafting and revising. And the first thing that I've realised that I've got to do is fix some serious plot holes. You've been so swept up in your writing that you've kind of thrown in these nice little tidbits or subplots that you're planning on expanding on throughout your writing, but then it never really kind of happened. Or maybe you've got some characters that needed filling out, which then completely disappeared. I think this is a really natural part of the writing process, and actually I think if you have plot holes left after you finish drafting, that actually just shows that you've been pushing yourself and trying to come up with ways to make your manuscript more interesting. So everybody goes about their revisions and editing process differently, and I'm not going to tell you how you should do it. I'm just going to tell you how I like to approach revisions. Now, obviously, because a novel is so long, it's usually advised that you don't actually look at revising anything or editing anything until you've finished drafting, because the danger is that you'll be going through and editing passages that you may end up having to completely change or cut out altogether later on down the line. However, being the reckless rule breaker that I am, I did do a little bit of editing as I went along. So the first half of my manuscript has actually had quite a lot of time spent on it already. And I've begun reading through it again, and I haven't got tons of changes. I have a couple of plot holes that do need fixing, things that I was intending on filling out later that didn't quite happen. For example, one of my main characters has a brother, which I talk about at the beginning, but then only introduce like 10 chapters before the end. So like a good 2/3 of the way through the book, and I only really have him in one scene. So it's become apparent that he just shouldn't be in there altogether. He's not important enough. The reason I wanted him there was because in the sequel he's going to have a more important role, but you can't have an entire book where you're talking about somebody's brother who then you don't really know anything about. And my manuscript's already over 100,000 words long, so the last thing I need to be doing is adding in more stuff with a character that's borderline pointless. But whether or not you're somebody like me who approaches editing that way and kind of edits as you draft, if you're looking at your manuscript for the very first time after having completed it, what I like to do is have a notebook next to me, any old notebook, and then a red pen, and just comb through the whole thing, not going down into tiny little edits, not, fixing typos, although if you see them, I suppose it makes sense to highlight them as you go anyway. But really you're just trying to get a feel for any big issues within your manuscript. So, things like undeveloped characters, things like issues with the story, inconsistencies, things like that. Big things that are going to have a big impact on the finished book and that readers will instantly pick up on. You need to identify that right away before you start getting more granular into the editing process. So that's where I'm at now. I'm halfway through my manuscript. I've kind of got a list in my book, and it's not a very long list. I'm not going into specific details, but just sort of saying, the issues that I've flagged, and not doing anything on the manuscript. If I'm seeing a really big issue, I'm not trying to rewrite it in the margins. I'm just doing a big old circle around it, adding in a note saying, this needs changing. When I'm back at my computer making those edits, I've got the notebook and my manuscript together, and I can kind of work out what needs doing. One thing to be aware of when you're rereading for the very first time is not to get bogged down in edits. Your initial read through is not about fine tuning, it is about highlighting big problems. So if you come up across a chapter that you go, God, this whole thing is awful, the whole thing needs rewriting, do not start rewriting it. Wait until you've read the whole thing, and then go, yeah, okay, this still needs changing, and highlight it at the time when you come across something that you're not sure about or you think might need reworking. Just a big old, I was going to say big old circle, but if it's on your computer, you probably don't want to do that. But just, comment on it, maybe change it into a different colour or highlight it, whatever you want, and go back to it later once you have finished reading the whole thing. The whole point is you're trying to get the same experience that your readers are going to have when they're reading your book for the first time. So if you get bogged down in the nitty gritty, you're going to kind of lose that overarching perspective that you really need. Also, I found it really helpful to print it off. Now, obviously, in the interest of saving the trees, I wouldn't recommend that you print it off on a regular basis. But having stared at the computer screen for the past 8 months, it was really time for me to look at it on another device, and my Kindle has long since bitten the dust, so that really only left me printing it off. Also, it did kind of feel really satisfying to be able to hold your manuscript like that and actually see it in the flesh, or in the paper, so to speak. But yeah, like obviously we don't want to be doing that every time. Mine was something like 443 pages, so I really don't want to be printing that off more than necessary. But anyway, so once I've gone through that, and once I've written all my notes down in my notebook, I will take it back to my computer, rewrite the whole thing, and I will not be printing it off after that. Maybe when it's finished, but that's it now, it's not going to get printed off again. And then I'm going to have another read through once I've made those edits, and then I'm going to start sending chapters to beta readers. One other important thing to remember is that you really need to let your manuscript rest. Now, I'm being a bit of a hypocrite because I have not done this. I meant to do this. I wanted to let it rest after I'd printed it off, but there were just so many things that were sitting and bubbling at the top of my brain. I was like, oh, I want to see, did I change the middle name of my main character halfway through, or was that one scene as bad as I remember it being at the beginning? And I just couldn't help it. I couldn't resist, and I ended up starting it. And I know people were advising me very kindly not to do that because of burnout, but I'm feeling good about it, and I promise that once I've done these revisions, I will let it rest, because what that enables you to do is get the much needed perspective, the distance away from your manuscript, so that you can look back at it with fresh eyes and see mistakes or issues with tonality or perhaps tense problems, anything like that, with fresh eyes. So it is a really important thing to do. But my plan is to kind of do that at the same time as the beta process. Maybe that's a terrible idea. I'll let you know if it is. But that way, hopefully, you know, while I'm waiting for beta feedback, I can not be looking at my manuscript, because I'm not going to make changes whilst they're reading it, because that's pointless. If they turn around and say, I really hate chapter 11, and I've actually rewritten chapter 11, then what was the point? I actually really enjoy revising my manuscript. I don't know if I'm weird, because I've seen loads of YouTubers and people online who are like, oh god, editing is the bane of my life. Maybe I'll get there, but I've always really enjoyed that, because now I've got the real thing, I've got the story, it's alive and kicking. It's just a case of crafting it and sculpting it to become exactly what I want it to be. So I find that really exciting, because at the moment, while I'm very proud of what I've written, it's still pretty rough. It's not a great literary masterpiece, it still needs a lot of work, and so this is really exciting for me, because this is where I get to really fine-tune it and get all arty and creative with it. So, full disclaimer, I'm actually filming this ahead of time because next week is my birthday, or by the time you're watching this it will have been my birthday already, and I'm not sure if I'll really have time to do a video for you guys. So hopefully by the time I'm doing my next video, I will actually be way further ahead. Hopefully I'll have finished all of my first round of revisions, because I'm planning on doing that quite quickly. Please do chat to me down below if you've got any suggestions, or if you do things differently. I always find it interesting hearing from other writers. And if you're also in the revising process, good luck. I know it's tough work, but it's rewarding when you see it all come together at the end. So that's all I've got for you guys this week. Thanks so much for bearing with me, and good luck with your own manuscripts, and I will see you guys soon. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you enjoyed this, and yeah, I'll see you guys for more fun next Thursday. Take care, bye.